Hey y'all, James here before the show starts to tell you about 2023's MLM Pod Patreon Pledge Drive, taking place live at twitch.tv/Mostly Speakin' Sentai on April 15th, starting at 9 a.m. What is it, you wonder? Well, in an attempt to get you to subscribe to patreon.com/MLM Pod, where you can listen to our premium content like This Existed, Engaged with Nicolas Cage, Mostly Speakin' Sentai After Dark, and so much more, I'll be streaming live until we get to 40 patrons or I pass out. Starting now, for every 10 new patrons we get, I'll be doing the extremely spicy Pocky One Chip Challenge. That goes for $1 patrons, $5 patrons, and $10 patrons, so go subscribe now. The live stream will include video games, watch-alongs of Los Luchadores and Stick It in Detroit, a live recording of Formulaic with R2 Shelby 2, me working out, showing as much skin as Twitch's terms of service will allow, call-ins, music making, and more. So again, that's Saturday, April 15th, starting at 9 a.m. twitch.tv/Mostly Speakin' Sentai. Go subscribe now to patreon.com/MLM Pod to make sure the party starts off hectic with me eating a lot of spicy chips. Now, enjoy some good Marshland Media podcasting. Toodaloos!
It's a blueprint, a rubric, a guiding light to meet deadlines. It's formulaic to Dorothy's court, so give us more of the norm. Come along, it's formulaic.
Hello, we're back. It's Formulaic. I'm Shelby. Hi.
And I'm James, but then say like, hey, I'm Shelby.
Hey, I'm Shelby.
And I'm James.
And this is Formulaic.
Yeah, right. Like in Fairly OddParents.
Oh, bed twerp.
Yeah, right. Pop.
Okay.
Wow, we're already off to a shaky start.
We're already
No.
not on the same page in any way.
No. Also, I need to put on my blue blockers, guys.
Yeah, I thought you already had them on.
Oh, I need the extra ones.
The extra blue blockers. Yeah, I know your eyes weren't as orange as usual.
Yeah, oh man, I wish orange-colored eyes were a natural thing.
That would be so cool. I think I have orange-colored eyes in some video games.
Oh yeah, you can also get blue-colored eyes if you are in Fairly OddParents.
If you're Timmy Turner, you got big blue eyes, just circles.
Damn, he's looking so nice. His pupils are his irises. I think the only people who have pupils are the Fairly OddParents.
The fairies. Yeah.
That's how you know.
Everyone's just got like plain circles for eyes.
Walk around, flash lights in everyone's eyes. You got pupils.
Then you must be a fairy.
Fairly OddParents.
So we watched Fairly OddParents. That's the show we're talking about today.
Yeah, right. Ha. There we go.
You got something very different from that show than I did.
What do you mean?
Because you're saying like duh and yeah right all the time. It's just not what I think of when I think of...
It's the Fairly OddParents. Yeah, right. Pa. That's the theme song.
I don't remember the yeah right. I thought it's Vicky saying bed twerps.
She says that earlier, and then she says, hold on, am I just
now we gotta
mishearing
listen.
this?
We have to listen to it.
A full-ass, I think it came out in 2001, a full-ass 20 years?
No, you're probably right, because I've been skipping that intro. I've just been watching the show and greatly enjoying it. Let me tell ya, Fairly OddParents is a good, funny cartoon.
Uh-huh. I was like, is this... Oh, yeah, it does end with Fairly OddParents. Yeah, right.
Well, I don't remember that. It's on me, James. I'm the loser here.
Yeah, you loser ass.
So why don't you kill me?
I bet you... Okay, yeah, that's back. I bet you had Fairly OddParents when you were a child, but you can't remember them because your brain was altered.
It's possible, and that would be very sad to me. That's actually one of my nightmares, is to have had some like great magical thing happen to me, but not be able to remember it because of the rules.
Like Warriors of Virtue style.
Exactly like Warriors of Virtue, because I was obsessed with that movie when I was a kid.
Which, hey, maybe you'll be talking about it next month on This Existed.
I would love to be talking about it next month on This Existed, but for now, I'm talking about the Fairly OddParents today on
Yeah, right.
Formulaic. So this show came out in what, 2005?
2001, but technically started as a What a Cartoon, I believe, in 97, and that's how I was introduced to it.
Because when I said 2005 on Netflix, I was like, that's weird. I could have sworn it was older than that. And it was.
Butch Hartman from Michigan, I believe, he said, hey, I'm going to go to to Cartoon Network and work on things like Dexter's Laboratory and Johnny Bravo. And then he was like, hey, man, I want to do my own show. And Cartoon Network said, we don't really like it then. What a cartoon. Predator! And then he got a TV show.
All right. Good for Butch Hartman, because the show is hilarious.
He is a little bit of a fuckboy these days, but we digress.
Because it was one of those shows I was just like always on, on the TV. I think my little brother was often watching it. You just have the channel on and it'd be there. So I'm well acquainted. When I was watching back through it, I was like, I've seen most of these episodes and like remember them, but I didn't realize back then how like funny it was.
Very funny.
It's so funny. And this show is not afraid to do like cutaways and like flashbacks and just like, oh my God, Wanda and Cosmo are amazing. Cosmo is so dumb and like, it's perfect.
So is Timmy.
Oh yeah, but he's a kid.
No, like the fact that he doesn't understand the rules, because there are so many, also they're very fast and loose with these rules, but so many times he's like, awesome, I'm going to make a fast-powered bike to win this competition. Awesome, I'm going to become super smart and win this competition. Hey, I'm going to be a deep-sea diver to win this competition, to find the Titanic before James Cameron. That's not a real episode, but it should have been. It's always puff. And they're like, oh, what's that noise that it says I can't be doing this? The rules are broken. And Wanda and Cosmo, they say, hey, dude, this is a clear rule violation.
I just watched an episode where they're like, the rules state that we can't help you win a competition. So it's funny that the thing about this show is it's very episodic, right? So like each episode is self-contained. It has nothing to do with the other episodes. There's no like carrying thread, because the end of the first season, there's a Christmas episode where they talk about Santa Claus. And then in like the next episode, the first episode of the second season, Santa Claus is also in Cosmo's band. Oh yeah. His old band. And it's a totally different Santa. Like he looks different. His lore is different. So it's not really connected episode to episode, which is great for us.
Oh yeah.
Because we could do anything.
It will eventually in later seasons become a little more connective. And then there are certain characters that have storylines, like the alien child who comes down. Eventually he has some carryover from episode to episode that they bring him back. Yeah.
Right. Do you have like memories of this show? What's your history with Fairly OddParents?
Oh, no, for real. What a Cartoon was. Do you remember What a Cartoon?
Vaguely.
So it was just, hey, let's make these shorts, collect them together. And generally, this was a pilot factory of if kids responded to these shows, we will turn them into a full series. It's like, oh yeah, cartoon from that one thing that like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, all of those shows started on these shorts pilot factories. And I remember 1997 and plus, like Nickelodeon was one of the only like kids networks we had. We didn't have Cartoon Network when we lived in Grand Rapids. So Nickelodeon I was watching all the time. What a Cartoon come on. And I remember, because that's one of those Mandela effects that I thought Timmy's parents we only saw from like the waist up. But then I'm like, no, I guess that was cow and chicken. But no, in What a Cartoon, they did that style where you never saw their heads.
Oh, yeah. But in the actual show, you can see their full bodies, baby.
Oh, yeah, they're full-bodied, of course.
But the show is very much from the perspective of a kid. So we could talk about the formula.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Very basically, what I always figured out is it's very much from a perspective of a kid. So you've got some issue that Timmy's having. It's not even that big an issue. It's like just a general thing that Timmy wants, that a kid in general might want, like to win a competition or to have Christmas every day or
be in an action movie.
Yeah, just like general things that a kid might think is cool. And the Fairly OddParents have to grant all of his wish. Wasmo and Conda are very...
Wasmo and Condom.
Wasmo and Condom, the well-known Fairly OddParents, are very supportive of their child, so they'll grant the wish, but then there's some unintended consequence, as there always is. But they can't just unwish the wish because of the rules. So they have to find out a different way around, and usually it ends up with Timmy learning a lesson and doing some selfless act. And then everything's back together. Cosmo says another stupid thing that's very funny, and then the episode's over.
And also, like, it's not that it's like, oh, we'd be breaking a rule. It's either some loophole that the thing, like the Superbike episode, the bike was wished to be indestructible so that it can't be wished away. Usually, a lot of times, because Nicole last year watched all of these while going to sleep, and she said, hey, you should do Fairly OddParents because it is the same thing every single episode. And one of the big things is the wands are taken away. They're no longer magical for a little bit. Like they have to go re-up on their magic training, or they are separated from Timmy for some wildish thing where they can't leave.
Yeah, there was an episode where he wished everyone in the world looked the same, so they couldn't find Timmy because everyone was an identical gray blob.
Yeah. Great. That was season 1, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Damn, season 1 hit. I started with season 2 and just went through that.
Oh, see, I watched season 1 and the first episode of season 2.
Great stuff.
It was very good stuff. And I find these characters so lovable. I mean, because Wanda and Cosmo, they've been married for 10,000 something years. They are so in love. Wanda's the smart one, but she's not that smart. She just has the intelligence of a general person in a cartoon. And Cosmo is much dumber, and they're in love. And I love it. It's great.
It sounds like me and Nicole, ain't I right?
Yeah, so in love, so stupid.
One of us is stupid. I will not say which one.
Did you have any more formula details? Because I know you were coming out swinging. You had formula, you had idea.
I just have, you nailed the head.
I nailed the head.
Yeah, that's it, guys. That's the formula, duh. So it's going to be a good time.
We're done with the episode.
Yeah, that's all we do.
That's all we do.
We chit-chat a little.
There's no other part. There's no other part.
There is one thing compared to previous episodes we've done. These stories are self-contained into 12-minute chunks. However, this will probably still be our shortest episode, but I still want to at least get an hour recording so we can really hammer in this script, make sure it's the juiciest one we've ever done.
Oh, yeah. And I will say 12-minute episodes, but they are packed with dialogue.
Yeah.
And you can tell because there was the Christmas episode that I watched was like a 25-minute episode or whatever. And there was a lot more. I mean, they had a couple songs in there, and there was a lot more just like visual stuff without anyone talking. And that kind of just showed me how much constant joke there, like the jokes per minute in a regular episode is quite high. So we will have work to do, even if it's only 12 minutes.
Yeah. Hey, once we get to Sam and Max Freelance Police, if we ever find the formula with that, we're going to have a lot of dialogue because boy, oh boy, is that the Gilmore Girls of absurdist cartoon humor.
I can't wait. The only Sam and Max experience I have is from when I did the episode of Death from Above, a Sam and Max podcast.
Patreon.com/MLM pod.
Okay, so let's hear. I was thinking mostly stuff that for our episode, like something that a kid would want, what are kids into? So I had a couple of ideas, but I know you said you had an idea that you thought would be really good and like Nicole approved it and everything. So
Yes.
I would love to hear this.
Okay.
Like, who cares about my ideas? You have a good one.
So I was thinking, what is something you and I would want even today, and something maybe both of us struggle with? More so me than you. You are much more popular. So I was like, how would a child fit into this? And how could we make it kooky crazy and really... Yes, the show is from a child's point of view, but there are a lot of written by 34-year-old men jokes in this. Like in the baseball episode, they're clearly talking about frustrations with, my favorite baseball team, well, they traded the best player for a really shitty player. Those kinds of jokes kids don't understand, but dads do. So AJ, Chester, and Timmy, they start a podcast, just like kids love talking. I don't know. I guess it would probably be about like comics or something. Oh, actually, this is gonna really break bad in a second. And Timmy he's like, how do we get more than 20 fans? Our 20 fans are very nice and we love them, but we want this to go out to more people. So he wishes, hey, I wish our show was the most popular podcast ever. Well, everything always backfires. Shelby, what are the most popular podcasts ever?
Serial. Joe Rogan.
Okay, yes, the Joe Rogans get in there. So AJ and Chester become either right-wing conspiracies.
Okay.
We would do the child version of that. So like kind of like Freddy from A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. Fred, when he's like always talking about conspiracy theories, but then, like we would have to really push it over the edge. Or, hey, famous people for doing something completely unrelated to broadcasting start a podcast. It's uninteresting, but because they have that huge fan base built in, they get a lot of listeners.
Ooh, so maybe it's like, because of the wish, people have to listen to it and they just don't want to anymore. So everyone's like mad all the time. And like Timmy, AJ, and Chester have to like keep coming up with new podcast ideas. And they're so tired. They don't know what to talk about. And they wish they could just have a break and get entertained.
I was like, Timmy, he's normal Timmy. Like the wishes never change him. It's just the world around him. And I was thinking he's like, I don't want to have these kinds of fans, and my friends are completely different. They're buying into these conspiracy theories. So then he's like, well, let's wish this is no longer here.
Okay, because I'm thinking he probably can't wish, or even if he wishes, no one listens to the podcast anymore. Like the backlog's still there, and like Chester and AJ are still living off of that and getting like interviews. And so maybe like partway through the episode, he wishes the podcast away, so there's no podcast, but then Chester and AJ do their own podcast without Timmy because they're still like caught up in the fame of it. So like Wanda and Cosmo are like, well, we can wish away your podcast, but the rules here say we can't grant wishes to other kids or something like.
I like that because they break away in their first episode. They interview Crocker and he's like, well, clearly you're being canceled by Fairly OddParents.
The cancel culture.
Which I want to bring up Crocker real quick. This man is being gaslit so hard. Yes, he wants to kill magic and he thinks it's unfair or whatever. But the fact that he's right and everyone is gaslighting him so hard is sad.
It is sad. However, I think since this man's trying to like kill the Fairly OddParents, I'm glad that he doesn't have confirmation of their existence.
It's still pretty sad.
Yeah, but that's like saying it's so sad the Nazis couldn't find the people hidden in the basement.
Okay, you want to know
and the people lied about them being there.
Okay.
This is a murderer, James. He's trying to murder magic.
But maybe once he finds out about it, his heart will be in. Why not wish him to be happy?
Doesn't he have like was there something in his backstory about fairy godparents. Maybe he had them when he was a kid and
I
then
think
things
so.
went wrong from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Timmy doesn't really go around wishing, I wish this person were happy. I wish this person were happy. I wish this person were happy.
He should.
He should. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Timmy wishes for all this podcast equipment for his friends. So they're hanging out. They're talking about this comic book they like or something. What are they going to do? Maybe they're talking about like a game they like to play. I don't know. Or they're hanging out just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, we should record this. So Timmy quickly wishes for some podcasting equipment, right? And they're like, this is so cool. And they start doing their podcasts. And then they watch like the hits on the podcast go from like 0 to like 1. And then it just like, and that's it. Or like it doesn't really get a lot of hits. So Timmy's like, I love talking to my friends about this stuff, but I wish people would listen to our podcasts that we made. I wish it would be the most popular podcast in the world. So then they start recording, and because in order for it to be the most popular podcast in the world, Chester and AJ have to be real creeps or something. Like it turns them into, conspiracy theorists or like Alex Jones type people to get like listens.
Or if we're talking about comics, it's like really against woke culture. Or since it would be a kid version, it would be we would have to be like, oh, there's too many yucky girls in these comics. And it's like, yes, it's deep rooted in misogyny, but it's not flat out like this woke culture.
I get it. I got it. So these kids are saying very controversial things because the things you get to things that get really popular or people listen to a lot are often very controversial. So the kids start spitting all these kid hot takes like, I actually like vegetables or something like that. Like, what else do kids do? Or like, I think kids who get A's on their homework should be locked away or just some like weird kid stuff.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, like, Timmy could bring up like, AJ, you get straight A's. And then AJ looks towards like a random engineer that they have right now and goes like, hey, Clyde, cut that. All right. We need to maintain an image of the everyman. The every kid.
Okay, I'm just taking some notes for when we go through and talk through this. So it gets really controversial, and Timmy is like, you know what, I miss talking to my friends. Like when we started this out, it was just fun talking to my friends, and now I don't have that anymore. So I wish this podcast weren't the most popular podcast anymore. And then they do poof, and it's not the most popular podcast anymore because it's now Chester and AJ have their own podcast that's more popular than the one that they had with Timmy.
A joke that they will usually do is like when Timmy's all alone, he'll like fire up the podcast and he'll have to be doing it with some other weirdo. Like,
well, who is it with the boil? The kid with the boil?
We'll throw the Boyle kid in there and one other.
Maybe he tries to get like Vicky as a guest. I mean, Vicky would be there, and she'd be like, I don't want to do your podcast.
Oh, also, I think Tootie should be established as like one of their biggest fans, and she's still continually. So maybe they go over and like Tootie is a guest with the Boyle kid.
Okay.
He still has Clyde, though. The engineer Clyde is still there, and Francis is their new engineer with AJ and Chester's new show. And he'll come in and say some dirtbag shit here and there.
Yeah, Francis is the mean older kid, right? Okay, so once they have their own solo podcast, Timmy's trying to do his own thing, but he misses his friends. So because of the rules, something in the rules, Wanda and Cosmo can't undo Chester and AJ's new podcast because it has nothing to do with them. So how does Timmy get his friends back?
We would need them to either realize that podcasting sucks or like you find out something's against the terms and conditions. So like in Alex Jones, all of the platforms remove them and they're like, oh, maybe we were pieces of shit. So maybe Timmy on his show does a tell-all and exposes them as just like nerd-ass dweebs.
But he does it in a way that's like, you know, let me tell you the truth about, or maybe he's going to do that. He's like, I'm going to expose them. Let me tell you the truth about Chester and AJ. But then when it comes down to it, he's like, Chester and AJ were my best friends.
Yeah.
And I miss them and I miss talking to them. And I just wish things could go back to the way they were when Chester and AJ and I, you know, would just hang out by ourselves and didn't care about who was listening to us. And that's, you know, Wanda and Cosmo are like, oh, that's that's a wish that someone else will have to grant. Or like, they're like, we're not going to be able to grant that wish. But then Chester and AJ come and they're like, we miss you too, Timmy. All this fame and stress has gotten to us. We're kids. We don't want a job.
Yeah. And we should have like a callback. So I think we should start the episode out as they're podcasting, and then there will be a throwaway of them saying like, hey, wait, before we like leave, where did you get all of this? And he goes, curb alert on Craigslist. And then they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then they leave. But during the podcast, because it'll be like comics and movies, maybe Timmy brings up how he had a strange dream about the Crimson Chin where they were hugging. Nothing. So I think at the end when he's like, oh yeah, they're my friends. I love them. And they don't even call me weird for wanting to hug the Crimson Chin's chin.
Yeah, that's good. So you said that he'll get the podcast equipment from what on Craigslist?
Curb alert on Craigslist.
I don't know what that is.
So someone will just drop, it's usually in the free section. It could be a curb alert or an alley alert, meaning someone takes a picture. Hey, here's my address. It's on the curb. First come, first serve. Just go grab it. Meaning I'm not going to be out there. It's there for free. Someone come grab it.
Fantastic. I had no idea. I didn't. Am I going to have to get on Craigslist?
Oh, yeah.
Am I going to put myself on Curb Alert and I'll just stand there for someone to pick me up?
That, you know, might be against the terms and conditions.
Okay. So first thing they're doing, should they have podcast equipment or should we see them deciding to podcast?
I think it should start out as podcast because we only have 12 minutes.
Okay, so they're hanging out. They're talking about maybe they've got their opinions about the Crimson Chin, the most recent issue or something. And you've got they sound like people from podcasts where they're reviewing movies in a very serious way. Like it's not even like funny.
We should do it as, instead of the comic books, it should be the CCCU, the Crimson Chin Cinematic Universe. That's what they're discussing and how it deviates from the comic book so much. Right.
So maybe you have Chester on one side, AJ on the other, and Timmy in the middle. You know, being like, oh, they're both good. So it starts out, they're sitting there. They've got like sunglasses. They've got their blue light blockers on. They're sitting around this sound equipment. Timmy's microphone is Wanda and the sound mixer is Cosmo.
Hell yeah, I like that.
And Chester and AJ is saying like, the new Crimson Chin cinematic universe installment is a stinker. If they had just stuck with what they did in the comic books, they would have stayed true to the character development of the Crimson Chin and where the trajectory of his story. And then, you know, the other one, whichever one I didn't say, comes in, is like, you're wrong. The comic books were a first draft compared to this movie. This shows the Crimson Chin and all of his chinly glory and all of that. And Timmy's like, we have great points from both sides, you know, but I'm of the opinion that all of the Crimson Chin is enjoyed. In fact, just last night I had a dream that I hugged the Crimson Chin's chin.
And they're like, excuse me? What?
And I didn't care if it was the comic book Crimson Chin or the movie Crimson Chin. I loved him just the same.
In fact, both of them were there, open-chinned for all.
And then it cuts to the dream where there's like a comic book Crimson Chin and a movie Crimson Chin, and they're saying stuff. They're like, hey, you're looking great. You too.
And they're like, one says, oh, hug me, Timmy, my cleft is waiting. And then the other is like, oh, but my cleft is deeper and more Timmy-shaped. And then he flexes and it becomes Timmy-shaped.
And he's like, that's what you get with the CGI in movies these days.
And then the comic book one just has an eraser and he's like, hold on, Timmy, hold on. I can make this work. This never happens.
And then they're back at the podcast and they're like, well, I think there's one thing we can agree on is that there's a lot more for us to talk about on this subject. Join us next time on our podcast. And then they end it and like the microphone snaps closed. Is that a thing microphones do?
I don't know.
I'm looking at a microphone right now. It doesn't have a snap close.
No, it doesn't.
It's not a flip phone.
And they're all like, AJ says, oh, that was a great episode. Chester says, oh, even better than our last. Hey, speaking of, like, what's our viewership right now? It was 12 last week. What is it today? And then Timmy says, let me pull this up. It is 12.
Or it goes like, they're watching it and it goes up to 13 and they're like, yay.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then it drops like down to 12 again because someone stopped listening. And it's like, then it can cut to somewhere. Okay, so it goes up to 13 and they cut to, who was it who you wanted to be another one fan? Tootie?
Tootie, yeah.
So it cuts to Tootie being like, oh, a new episode. I love this show. And then it drops back down to 12 and it cuts to someone being like, it cuts to like an adult being like, yeah, I don't think I can keep listening to this or something. What do they say? Like, wait, these are children.
Yeah, that would be funny. But we could also throw in, then it goes down to 11. And they're like, what? And then it cuts to Tootie crying and Vicky just bashing her iPod with a hammer.
Yeah, okay, that works. So it goes up and then it goes down again.
Yeah.
So Timmy will be saying something like, I really love talking to you guys about the Crimson Chin. It's like my favorite topic of conversation. I can talk to you guys about the Crimson Chin for hours. And they're like, yeah, but it sure would be nice if someone else would listen to this thing we made.
Mm-hmm. Can we, in the beginning when they're talking, can it break real quick? And Timmy says, hey, a quick word from our sponsor, eggs. Have an egg today. And then AJ like eats an egg and he says, hey, Timmy, where did you get all these eggs from? And he said, they came with the soundproofing. And it's just a bunch of egg crates on the wall. And a gag where after everyone settles down, and then I'll get to a spot where like Cosmo says something out of turn when it's like Timmy's like, how come we don't have a lot of listeners? Cosmo could say, because you guys suck or something like that. And then Wanda, what?
He's like, he'll be like, well, it's not because you're not lovable. It's just because your podcast isn't any good.
Oh, yeah. And then I would like somehow Wanda, then he's still a soundboard, just jams an egg into him. And then he starts screaming like, there's yolk in my circuit board.
That's perfect.
My knobs are all yoked up.
Oh, I'm all yolky.
Uh-huh.
So then...
This should be when the wish happens, right?
Yeah, then they were wishing. He's got a wish. He's like, I wish our podcast was the most popular podcast in the world or something.
Can Wanda say, would you like any stipulations on that? And he goes, nope, you heard me.
Perfect. So then it does the little poof, and then they're still at the sound equipment, but now Chester and AJ have like sunglasses on, or they're like wearing like muscle shirts or something and drinking pre-workout for some reason.
Literal muscle shirts. They're shirts to make them look muscular.
Yeah. So what are these new personalities for Chester and AJ? Also, which one's Chester and which one's AJ?
Chester is Frankie Muniz and AJ's the smart one.
Okay, so AJ's the smart one. Chester is the one with like braces.
Yeah.
And blonde hair. Got it. So they're talking about real controversial takes. They're like, so it'll come to light that they started off as like a movie and comic review podcast, but now it's an opinion podcast.
Well, I think it could still be on. So I don't know if you know about like Comicsgate or anything like that. There are comic book fans, would you believe, that are straight up shitheels. So
True. Yeah.
I think we could make them like start out saying, you want to know what? Say what you will. Our differing opinions on the Crimson Chin cinematic universe, we can all agree that their main focus now is getting girls to watch. Who's this beautiful butt even for? You know, like the Crimson Chin, there's a woman villain? No. Women are the damsels in distress.
And so that's like Chester, and then AJ comes in like, and I'm not saying that there can't be any women in it. Obviously, there can be girls in the show. They should just be in the places where they belong in the story. What's the reason for making the villain a woman? What's the purpose of that? If they can give me a good explanation for why they wrote it that way, then I would understand.
It could also be like, we want a damsel in distress and a damsel in a dress because what's the deal with these women in jeans?
And then it'll cut to, and they're like, what do you think, Timmy? And Timmy's like, I like when they punch each other.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's like, a perfect Timmy Turner.
And so then Wanda's like, I don't know about how this wish has affected Timmy's friends. And Cosmo is like, well, all kids go through a weird growth period. Remember when I was really into something stupid? He was into something, or lottery scratchers or something. And it's like Cosmo just like buying up scratch offs.
Remember when I was really into eating rocks and it's just him tiny biting into a rock and his teeth shatter?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Remember
Very
when my
Cosmo.
favorite snack was rocks? Or boulders. I think boulders is better.
And Wanda's like, yeah, you did go through a lot of phases before we got married or something like that. And so they end the episode, they check their listenership. It's through the roof. It's wild.
Literally. They had
the computer blows up. Yeah.
No, they had to, on their computer monitor, get like an extension into the screen to show the bracket, and it just goes through his roof. When
the line of the chart goes up, the monitor stretches up through the roof to accommodate for it. That's perfect.
Through the roof, the fans are loving this.
And so it cuts to Tootie and her whole family listening or something, and they're like, this is our favorite show, or whatever. They'll say something. What's something that funny they can say about because we have to cut away to all the people who now listen to this podcast.
Vicky could say, I want to hammer this, but something about it.
Yeah. These kids sound evil.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's good.
Like,
that's
these
good.
kids, is it just me or these kids get cooler?
Yeah. No, yeah, just that. These kids are cool now.
And so when they leave, they check their thing. They're like, and Timmy's like, hey, guys, do you want to hang out and like just like watch the movie again or whatever? And Chester and AJ are like, no, we're busy. Plus, I don't want to hang out with him. We argue all the time on the podcast. And now, like, Chester and AJ aren't really friends anymore or whatever.
And then AJ says that, and Chester says, that's the only thing we can agree on. Plus, it smells like eggs in here.
Very good, James. What would I do without you? So they do that. And Timmy, of course, is left there alone with all of this podcasting equipment. And Wanda's like, oh, Timmy, you're not looking too happy about all this. And he's like, I didn't think that it would change the way my friends treat me and each other. I don't want this to be the biggest podcast anymore. I want to go back to the way things were. And then he's like, I wish that our podcast was no longer the most popular podcast in the world. And he goes to sleep. And then he wakes up in the morning. And it's like, the new most popular podcast in the world is the Chester and AJ one that they started by themselves. And he listens to an episode and it's just like the same thing without Timmy.
And then they break into an ad. They say, check out Myers muscle shirts. These muscle shirts hold sweat like no other.
Perfect.
Use our promo code. AJ and Chester. What? We need names for these podcasts, but
our promo code, better without Timmy.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, real quick, when Wanda says like, hey, you don't look too happy, Cosmo who like just cannot read a room, he says like, of course he's happy. His podcast is doing so well. It's just what he wanted. Plus, he like, I don't know, like doesn't have to hang out with his friends as much anymore. He can spend time with us and our eggs.
He can help us arrange all these eggs.
Or he should just say like, of course he's happy. He's got more eggs than he knows what to do with.
Yes.
Yeah, there
perfect. We go. He's got more eggs than he can ever need. Okay. So where are we? He unwished it. It's replaced with Chester and AJ's podcast. And I feel like in their podcast, there should be a part where they're like, I think this. Well, I think this. And that's it. There's no time. And they're like, and that's the end of the show. There's no time for a middle opinion to balance us out. Because that would make the show worse. It's just like them being angry at each other.
Yeah.
And so Timmy feels particularly bad. So Timmy's like, well, I don't know what to do. How do I get back in on this? And they're like, oh, well, maybe you can still use all this podcasting equipment. And Timmy's like, that's it. I'll start my own podcast. Me talking about stuff like I used to with Chester and AJ will make them remember how much fun we used to have. And that's when he sets up with the Boyle kid, whose name is what? Do we know what?
I don't know right now off the top of my head. I do think before he starts setting that up, his mom and dad should come upstairs and say like, oh, have you listened to AJ and Chester's new show? It's the greatest. Not like the trash you were doing.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great.
Because they're
his
also
parents
affected.
are very much like that. Yeah, everyone in the world is. Okay, perfect. So then Timmy is trying to record this podcast, and then the Boyle kid comes in and is like, talking about something really boring, like that Timmy doesn't care about.
His name is Elmer.
Okay, so Elmer comes in and he's talking about different kinds of boils, maybe?
Yeah, and it's Bob the Boyle is the name of the boil.
Okay, got it.
And he has control over Elmer.
Maybe he's like, I need a microphone for my boil as well.
Yes.
Can I get another microphone for my boil? And Timmy's like, oh, this is never gonna work. Like, he checks the ratings and they're like negative.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I don't even know how you get a negative rating. So then it's got to cut to someone being like, oh, this is so bad, I'm gonna listen to it in reverse to wipe it out of my brain.
Can we also do a like Cosmo says, and make sure to throw some plastic over the pop filter on the Boyle's windscreen in case it bursts.
Yeah, we definitely need to get podcast lingo in there.
Oh, and he's like, maybe, no, Wanda should say that because she's the microphone for his Boyle.
Right.
She's like, oh.
Can we get a windscreen on here? Can we get a pop filter of some kind?
And make sure it's plastic.
I feel like I'm in a splash zone.
Ew, gross.
So they're doing that, and so Timmy's parents are like, wow, this is, or like Cosmo's like, hey, this is even worse than your last one or something.
Yeah.
And Timmy's like, all right, if I can't do better than them, then I'm going to have to take them down. And so he's doing research, like taking notes on the podcast to figure out how he can like debunk them or like, you know, take them down. So he's like, oh, on this episode, AJ said that kids who, you know, because of course we've got to have him listen to parts of the podcast. So I'm wondering, like, what should we have AJ and Chester talking about that Timmy can try to use against them?
Okay. What don't kids like? When you were a child, what didn't you like?
Chores.
Chores. Okay. All right. Maybe
I still don't like them.
Maybe they should be like, we don't like these things, but that like to be a cool kid, like cool kids like skipping class. So then maybe like AJ says, the only cool thing I got from school was my bad attitude. And then he's like, wait, he's on the honor roll and the honor society.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, and he is our honor in the classroom court.
And he plays your honor in the classroom court. So what about Chester? The only thing I know about him is he's got braces. What else is going on with Chester?
His dad is a shitty baseball player.
Okay. Maybe he talks about hating his parents or something. It's cool to like hate your parents. Everyone hate my parents, but like Timmy knows for a fact that he loves his parents. He loves his shitty baseball playing dad. So Timmy, when Cosmo and Wanda come in and Timmy has like, you know, red string connecting all of these notes that he has hanging on the wall. And he's like, I've developed all of these ways to debunk what they're saying, to finally bring them down from where they are and their high horse. And maybe Cosmo is like, oh, I had a high horse when I was a kid. And it's like a really tall horse. And he's like, I fell off my high horse when I was a kid. And then Mama Cosmo wouldn't let me get another one.
Yeah. I would like, so maybe Chester says about his parents, he's like, because it's like, hey, the only good thing I got from school, the only good thing I got out of school, and the only good thing about my dad is he fills me with the rage I need to come on this podcast and scream the truth.
That's perfect.
About the boil, when someone is reviewing the like how shitty the podcast is, to get another like cool term in there, one of the reviews for the new episodes was there was a constant rumbling from Bob the Boil, and like his throbbing was causing feedback in the mics. And then Clyde, or whoever we said was the engineer, he said, "Yeah, I couldn't gate that out. It was baked into the recording."
There you go. They're trying to get some room tone or whatever. So on Chester and AJ's podcast, maybe they hear that Boyle podcast and make fun of it. Like maybe they start making fun of people too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so Timmy wishes, he's like, I want this podcast episode to go out to all of Chester and AJ's listeners or something. And then Timmy goes in there and he's ready to like debunk them and bring them down. And Wanda's like, are you sure you want to do this, Timmy? They were your friends. I know things are hard right now, but these were your best friends. Mm-hmm. And Timmy is like, but this is the only way to get them back. And Wanda's like, well, if you say so. And he goes there and he's like, he's got his notes. He's all ready to bring them down. But then he sees like a Crimson Chin action figure sitting in the corner, or like the poster or something. And he's like, I started podcasting because I liked talking to my friends about the Crimson Chin. And then he talks about his memories with them. And he's like, and now I look at what they've become. And he like hesitates and is like, I'm really happy for them and their success, but I miss my friends. I miss the times when we would just sit in the room, in my room, and talk to each other without having to worry about entertaining anyone else. And everyone listens to that and they're like, lame, except Chester and AJ. Chester and AJ heard it and they finally come back and are like, said what we said earlier, like, hey, Timmy, I don't think we're going to keep podcasting. We heard what you said and we miss you too. And we miss each other. And they say stuff about being a kid. We're like, I'm a kid. I don't want to have to do work all the time. How does it end? They're all talking.
We got to throw some stuff back to the like beginning, which we had the eggs. So like they're back on the podcast, which we should call it like the super children of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Because the super children are one of the like allies of the Crimson Chin, and he's from Cincinnati, or
he's from Cincinnati.
Cincinnati Press.
The Cincinnati Connection.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Cincinnati Chatter.
Yes, yeah, that.
And then the new podcast with AJ and Chester is like two cool boys. Or something.
Or like
The Chester and AJ experience.
that, or maybe like the chins of truth.
Mm-hmm.
What's a chin pun that's also like conservative? Let me pull up
I'm trying to think of
rhymes
something
for
with
chins.
cleft, jaw, chin, cleft, bottom of face. Wow, there aren't a lot of words for chin, huh?
No.
I think it would be cool to take it away if they move away from the, like, they're still talking about comic books, but a lot of the podcasts for Chester and AJ is like these controversial, mean hot takes where like making fun of people and just being negative in general.
So yeah, let's do two cool boys.
Two cool boys. So yes, what can we call back to? So at the end, I think they're like, Timmy goes and like throws away all the podcast equipment. He like puts it back. Ooh, I have an idea. He puts it on the side of the road. He puts it back on curb, whatever, for Craigslist. And then what's his name? The teacher.
Mr. Crocker.
Mr. Crocker comes and picks it up so that he can do like, I can finally make my podcast about uncovering the truth of Fairly Godparents.
Yeah.
Then they hang out, and we got to bring back in the chin hug. So maybe Chester, AJ, and Timmy all hug each other, and he's like, "This is better than when I hugged the Crimson Chin in my dream." And Chester's like, "Okay, but don't tell anyone about this because we still have to seem a little cool."
Yeah. And they say like, "Oh, you got rid of all the podcasting equipment," and Timmy says like, "Oh, yeah, it seems like we should just hang out like we used to. No one needs to hear our thoughts and opinions on every single matter of every single day." And they're like, "Yeah, that's right." And maybe one of them goes, "But I see you kept all the eggs." And then it should also be like when he throws the stuff out, Crocker picks it up and he picks up Cosmo, who I guess has been like sleeping because he's all gummed up with the yolk. He picks it up and he's like, "Oh, I don't want this. It's all yolk." He throws it away, not realizing he could have had a fairy odd parent.
He could have had one. He could have had one this whole time. If he had just been nice, you know?
Yeah.
If he hadn't been trying to murder them, he probably could have been fine with it by now. You know?
Yeah. So maybe like throws it out, and then what would Cosmo say? Like some yolk pun. Oh, he says "yolk's on you" or something like
Yolk's
that.
on you.
Yeah, like, oh, how, I don't want
Or
this.
maybe he'll be like wrong. He'll be like, "Oh, he really threw the egg baby out with the bathwater," or something. It just, 'cause it doesn't really make sense because like Cosmo's not bright. The stuff he says doesn't really, he's got a lot of that random humor, you know?
Yeah. But wait, but we would need that to somehow like be tangential to something someone said.
I'm trying to think of a pun with like putting all your eggs in one basket or something.
Oh, like eggs in this basket case, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. It'll come to me. It'll come to us. Something will make sense. Perhaps we've said it already, and when we listen back to this, we're like, we already got it. Yolk's on you.
Yeah. Yolk's on you, and all the eggs are in this basket case, and he just starts like as the, like, I don't know.
He threw all of his eggs out of one basket or something. Like I said, it'll come to us.
Will it though?
Well, it'll be easier for it to, at least for me, when I'm writing these, it's hard for me to like, there's a difference between like talking it out and then thinking about like specific lines is something I don't usually do, like talking out. It's more like I gotta think about it.
I like talking out dialogue.
I like talking out dialogue is good. Dialogue?
Dialogue.
That's a podcast idea. It's just guys talking.
Hell yeah.
Dialogue.
The vagina dialogues. It's
I
men
was also
talking
thinking,
poon. What's up?
They live in Dimsdale, so if they do like the Dimsdale chins mail.
Oh yeah, Dimsdale chins mail.
Maybe that's their fan mail. What else can we get in there? Some side stuff. What can we have Vicky doing? Maybe she'll come interrupt Timmy's podcast at some point or at the beginning. She'll be like, "I smell fun," and tries to like rip the egg cartons off the wall, or
she's just like, No, this is actually a good thing. Vicky, during all the podcast records that Timmy does, is just screaming. And Timmy goes, hey, Wanda, can you throw on that Vicky canceling plugin? And it just cuts out her voice in the mic.
That's perfect. So it'll be like, he'll have a door outside his room that says like recording in progress or something. And Vicky's like, now's my time to shine. And she's like making all this annoying singing noise, but they have the Vicky canceling.
Yeah. He should also say, Timmy, like, oh, and it works incredibly on squealing pigs as well, and nails on a chalkboard, because they're similar to Vicky's voice.
Yeah, that's great. So I wonder if we could do a cutaway to like who invented that.
I think it would be a wishing thing of like, hey, I wish this. Oh, there was one.
I thought it was an actual plugin.
Oh, no. There's, when talking shit about Timmy and his new podcast, AJ and Chester, should say, oh, and that Elmer, I can't stand him. You want to know why he doesn't lance that boil? It's the only interesting thing about him. Of just like going hard in on him.
Chester and AJ will also have to face the consequences, or like in some way there should be some consequence for them saying horrible things about people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe they say something bad about the mom and dad, and then in the end, with all the eggs, they like get eggs thrown on them. And they're still in the muscle shirts, and they're like, oh man, not only does this hold sweat well, it holds yolk well too.
Okay, so they come to apologize to Timmy, and Mr. and Mrs. Turner are there, and they've already said something about Mr. and Mrs. Turner, like, oh, it's no wonder Timmy turned out the way he did with his parents, or something. And that's when the parents, everyone, like the parents and Cosmo and Wanda throw a bunch of eggs at Chester and AJ, and they're like, I guess we deserve that. Like they're contrite.
Also, why Cosmo might want to throw eggs at them. He says, oh, no wonder Timmy turned out the way he did. His parents are dumber than a rock eater or something like that to call back to that.
Perfect.
And then Cosmo is finally pissed at them.
Yes, I love it. All right, I think that's it. I think we did it.
I think we got enough material in there for you to work with.
Absolutely. I feel like we got it really well. We got the story down and the jokes down. Hell yeah. And it'll be quicker for me to type out because it's only a 12-minute podcast episode.
Man,
or a 12-minute TV episode. Fantastic.
And we're going to be, the table read will go so smoothly.
It will. I'm excited. I've already got some people lined up. You're saluting me.
Yeah.
The listeners can't see that.
You can hear smile. You can hear this. You can also hear someone saluting someone.
Well, right back at you, James. I'll salute you.
Did you guys hear that? She actually did.
I did. And
I did it again.
I will go on to say this has been, I've been Shelby. Wait, no, we have other stuff. We're plugging things.
Yeah.
Listen to my other podcasts, The Rom Complex. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/The Rom Complex. We've got bonus content, including TV mini episodes, reaction videos to thirst traps, and tarot readings from Sam. Also follow me on twitch.tv/R2Shelby2.
Yay. Oh, man, guys, head over to MLMpod.com to find out about information of my other podcasts, such as Mostly Speaking Sentai, Formulaic, Hit It and Crit It, Sweet Child of Time, and drum roll, please, The Height of Horror. Did I do the drum roll to try and remember in the time what the other podcast was? You better believe it. Could I have just paused and edited? No. Clyde's not here anymore. He left with all our eggs. That was my protein for the week. Now I just got to self-suck to get some protein.
Oh my God, I don't know if that has protein in it.
I've heard it does. Like that's the shitty thing on a bad American Pie ripoff to say like, oh yeah, take it in the mouth. It's got some protein. But then if a woman were to be like, yeah, take my tampon in your mouth, that's got some protein. It's my uterine lining. Guys go, no, get it away.
But that would literally have. Anyway, who cares?
Yeah.
Go on.
And so much iron, guys. I said to Nicole, I was stoned probably, and I go, oh, Nicole, I wish I had uterine lining to shed. And she's like, no, you don't.
You really don't.
I also, this is poetry, and I came up with it yesterday while we were watching the movie MILF, and I said to Nicole, I said, her hot MILF dick warmed in the sun. And Nicole's like, why warmed? And why is it out in the sun?
I don't know. She's just laying out on the beach, maybe.
Because we were watching MILF and I kept screaming to Nicole. I was like, oh, yeah, you want to see my MILF dick? And she's like, you gotta stop it, man.
You're interrupting this thing we're watching. I don't know what MILF is. Is it a movie?
Yeah, it's a bad, from 2010, American Pie ripoff style, but just all about MILFs.
I watched all of the reality show MILF Manor, and it was not good. It did not live up to the promise. The MILFs didn't fuck at all.
What?
Right? Yeah, I know. You're having the appropriate reaction, James.
I watched the first episode because We Love Trash is doing MILF March Madness right now, or March MILF Madness. All episodes this month have been about MILFs, and they started out with a watch-along of the first episode. And it's insane that they don't fuck. Do they make out?
Like, a couple of them make out a little bit. One couple spend a night together, but they're like, they kind of say that we don't really see any, there's no juicy details. They're kind of like, oh, nothing happened, or whatever. So it's like, come on. We wanted to, they shouldn't have been related. Anyway, enough MILFs. We were plugging the rest of our stuff.
Give me them MILFs. Hey, guys, listen to my music under Marshland Monster. New Dragon Boy Suede song coming out at the end of April called Catfight. Check it out.
Check it out.
Did you listen to it yet?
Not yet. James, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy, but I'm going to listen to it as soon as we stop recording right now.
Or maybe while I'm doing these last plugs. No, I'm kidding. Hey, guys, head over to patreon.com/MLM pod, where for $5 a month, you get exclusive content every single Friday. I am planning, I think on April 15th, an all-day stream. It's either until we get, I think maybe I'm going for 40 patrons on our Patreon, or until I pass out. Nicole won't be home, so your non-patronage could kill me. Yes, make them scared for my life, and that will incentivize my friends and family to do that. At least $1 patron. I'll take $1 into that count.
Oh my God, James. You're threatening self-harm for people to...
Yeah, but not like the classical self-harm. It's like, I'm still going to be eating. I'll be exhausted to the point of passing out on stream.
Okay, well, I can't say I condone it, but I support you.
I'm going to keep the door closed because I don't want Henry coming in and like angling the camera down towards my pants and then him placing my hand in my pants.
Could you explain how exactly that would happen?
He's a cool dude. He's got determination. He's motivated. Yes, he's a cat, but him and Butter could figure it out.
How to put your hand in your pants.
Maybe I'll just be wearing like some PJ pants, some loose-fitting slacks.
Is this before or after you pass out from exhaustion?
Of course, like after. I'm not going to allow a cat to do that while I'm conscious.
I was confused.
No, yeah, I'm passed out. That's why the door will be closed. Yes, they can figure out how to put my hands in my pants, but they can't figure out how to turn a knob.
And that's April 15th on
wherever.
Twitch.tv.
Twitch.tv/Mostly Speaking Sentai. But if you're a $10 patron, you get exclusive monthly content and shoutouts on every single free feed podcast. So let's begin with those, starting with Alex Z, The Waz, Steve F, Eric Berry of Ranger Command Power Hour, Orion, he's a rapper, D-F-O, Defo, Jordan B, The Chaos Witch, My Bickle, Brother in Common Law, Joshua, Jakis, Steve Barnes of Sweet Child of Time, Intro Void Style, The Womb in Which I Emerged, My Mother, Lil Corey's BFF and roommate Shane, That Fed, and twitch.tv/Corwinning. It's Corwin.
Hooray! We did it! And I have been your Fairly Odd Shelby.
And I've been that boil-ass fuck James.
And this was Formulaic. Bye!
Yeah! My life force has a boil on it. Bye. This has been a Marshland Media
And OK Owl production.
produced by me, James McCollum.
And me, Shelby Sweeterman.
For more content, please visit mlmpod.com.
Or okowl.com.
And for the best way to support this podcast, please visit patreon.com/MLMpod, where for $5 a month, you get exclusive content every single week. Thank you very much for listening. This might be, I'll put this in maybe as a blooper. The last episode of the Rom-Complex that I edited, it was as if both of you did not have headphones on. Meaning,
Oh my God.
you didn't know when the other was talking. And there were a lot of times when I was like, okay, who is saying the more poignant or the funnier thing right now? I'm going to drop that other person out.
I do that when I edit them too, because I noticed like that episode in particular, we were talking over each other a lot.
And you guys were going nuts.
We were going nuts.
Understandably.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun episode.
Oh, yeah.